on the bottom of the map, in the color blue, we do indeed have theonlybaus playing as the Russians. It's a lot of crates. That's how it is when you play Russia. It's a lot of crates. Picking himself up 40 food right off the bat there with his crack shot, and then we'll be getting out onto the map ASAP. Let's see what he'll find. 3 straight sheep even. And nearby here we also have 90 coin. This one, I think maybe he'll regret using the crack shot, but still 2 wolves not too difficult to pick up there. And has gotten his villagers in queue. We'll see what he does with his 200 wood start, although it is Russia, so I expect not a trading post or anything like that. Just a house we'll get up on. Well, we'll find out. Dutch. 14 vils or 17 vils, I suppose. Although I'm not sure as Russia... I wonder if 17 vil is a bit better against Dutch. Just because, you know, they have skirms and maybe you want to try something a bit more economic focused, but I don't think we'll be seeing that today. Anyway, not much to glean from the crate starts. Let's introduce his opponent, minimoult, playing as the Dutch in the color red. Here he is in the south of the map there, leaving that 100 wood on the floor. Switch on over to him here. So far, he's managed to pick himself up. Well, I can't check, but right now going for 90 food.
This is an incredibly exciting matchup because you've got the Dutch, which are probably the most reactive civilization in the game, against Russia, which is one of the most proactive civs in the game. So I'm going to be really curious to see what sort of deck minimoult looks for, and whether he includes cards like Town Militia or Town Militia in his deck, which is going to enable him to one-shot the Russian musketeers. So, there it is. We do see he's got Town Militia in his deck. So I'm expecting that we might see this card shipped quite early, just because it will allow him to play very, very greedily. If he's able to get this card in as maybe the 3rd or the 4th card, it means that he's pretty much just going to be unstoppable. He'll just be building banks all day and head up to the 3rd age and won't really face any issues.
Yeah. Maybe he can get up there without sending it as well. If you can do that, he'll be in a very good spot, or he'll be very pleased. We'll see how it goes. 3 villagers now coming in. Looks like Red is not familiar with his opponent being there just yet, so he's going to go for this treasure all the same. Going to creep it like a baus, except the real baus, the only baus. Going to crack shot that final animal there and pick himself up 90 food. Does lose the treasure, but ultimately that's the risk you take when you creep them, I suppose.
Yeah, it's in a position on the map where you really wouldn't think that the theonlybaus would be down here. It's just, it doesn't seem like an appropriate place to be scouting at that point in the game, but what do you know? There he is, and he found that treasure and picked it up.
We'll be going up on 14 vils. Distributivism coming in just now, and managed to pick up the treasure and chases him all the way back to his town there. Let's turn off play fast and take a look at the Russian player's deck here. Just distributivism in age 1. Lots of crates. The 3 big unit shipments that you'd expect. And boyars as well. Interestingly, a bit more fortress and industrial age potential. You might often see maybe not all 10 cards in the industrial age, and sometimes see team thingy scouts in age 1. Do Russia have economic theory? I think they do, and that not in his deck either. So it does have 12 Oprishniks, which I think you were going to point out.
Yeah, 12 Oprishniks is very, very interesting. It's a card that you rarely see, but wonderful job here by minimoult in blocking this blockhouse. He knows exactly what's happening. So yeah, being very, very cheeky there and trying to move the Explorer and get it in position. But the blockhouse does go down for the theonlybaus. And it looks like his Explorer, in addition to the blockhouse, will be going down.
Yeah, it was weaker earlier from the from the Coyotes. But ultimately did get that 90 food treasure, so I don't think he'll be too worried. He's going to have this next to his blockhouse, so units will easily pick it back up as soon as he dies if needed. Although, yeah, there it goes, going down. Blockhouse will, however, let's switch on over to Baus. Blockhouse still going to be up just as he ages, so although it was delayed slightly, no real problem just there. And Cossack's going to be his first card there, which I expect will be spawned to that forward spawn point. And the Explorer does get back up again. So if only he'd kept him alive slightly longer. But nonetheless, did go down 45 XP for the Dutch. 400 wood on the floor. We were expecting a couple of houses. And those Cossacks
Because
will
he
be...
was able to snag that early treasure from Minimold, it means that his age up time was actually quite quick. He had very, very little idle time. So these Cossack are going to be hitting Minimold's base really early, probably even at the 5-minute mark. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a surprise for Minimold, I suspect. Probably not expecting them to be in there that quickly.
Although no muskets in train, like despite that food treasure, he's not elected to train. There we go, just queuing them just now. Prioritize the villager batch over the muskets. So they will be delayed, but the Cossacks, however, as you say, yeah, he got up pretty quick. They're going to be coming in ASAP. And let's see what he's got. I mean, let's switch back to Dutch here. Does get that second bank, but his wood shipment's only just arrived. So I think that food shipment speeding him up by like 20 seconds or so, 10 something like 10-15 seconds, which means he's not going to have that foundation down for a military building just yet, which makes this very awkward. Does manage to get a low HP villager into the town center here. And these Cossacks, let's see how much damage they can do. They're going to be really pesky. Although if they stand under the TC, they'll be pretty sad. But I think he probably senses no military building. So these Cossacks not gonna go away. They're going to be remaining nearby, remaining pesky. Here come some musketeers. They don't want to get too close. There's only 5 of them, and the TC will really rip them apart. So instead of going in with just the 5 and have them all dwindle down, perhaps he'll wait for having 10 in total. Stable foundation comes down, but the Cossacks still blocking it there. And now that the
Cossacks are really being pesky, aren't they?
Yeah.
Just the way that they come in and they idle the villagers. So before we saw Minimold sitting with 18 idle villagers, now he's down to 14 or 15 idle villagers, 17 idle villagers. So just a whole bunch of idle time that he's got. But
I like the decision
tanks.
to go in with the muskets when the Cossacks were there at the same time. You had more units in total, so whilst the Cossacks were drawing the fire, might as well bring those 5 muskets in. Yeah, the bank I'm not really too worried about. Even if their cav were right under the TC, that's still going to just, like, that goes up so quickly. It has enough hit points to take a few swings from a Cossack, and he will ultimately get that stable up, but it is a bit delayed. Switching back to Russia now. 5 more muskets coming down, and the delayed units could be a problem here. 600 wood now coming for the Russian player. And with that, I expect him to get up the trade route.
Yeah, that's my suspicion as well against the Dutch. He's probably just going to sit back, play a bit more defensively, take the trade route behind it, happily get Stagecoach. On this map, Stagecoach is incredibly powerful because the single upgrade will upgrade both trade routes. And because there's 2 carts, the resources are being collected. Actually, the resources would be collected at the same rate. I'm just doing the math in my head now.
Yeah. Although actually on Mendocino there is a tech that Rikikipu put in when he made the map that reduces the rate of the trading posts. Only Baus getting the trading roust. But yeah, I think they're slightly less efficient, and I think that might be the same for Colorado as well. I'm not sure why that decision was made. Maybe they felt the balance of the map whilst it was in development. This is Rikikipu. Thought that it were too good, so nerfed them. And that might be fair enough. You can quite easily put down a forward blockhouse or something and defend all of the trading route, which is what we're seeing here. That wood being used, by the looks of it, from the Russian player to add in a stable, and indeed, as we alluded to, a trading post coming down as well. With that wood also got a market, and steel traps now being researched, so just nice to use that. And of course, Stagecoach as well. They're going to be getting that up, and that will mean I expect more wood, so using that wood to invest into Stagecoach, so using that wood to invest into getting more wood from the trade route. That said, though, 600 wood now actually on the way, so maybe I'm wrong. More muskets coming in. Quick response from Minimoult. He won't be losing any villagers today, and there are now 10 villagers, I expect, in this TC, the perfect amount. So those muskets not going to be... this is fine. Exchanging 10 villagers for the shots here is actually not economically too problematic.
Yeah, it looks like he is one-shotting those musketmen, so he's picked up the town militia card.
He has, yeah.
Yeah, gonna be doing a heap of damage, and it doesn't even look like he's training any hussars. He's not worried at all. He's just sitting there, happy, minding his own business. How many banks has he put down? He's put down 4 banks, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, all 4.
Yeah, 4 banks.
4 out of 5, rather. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And you mentioned colonial militia, so actually 10 inside. Yeah, it was one closer to 7 or something like that. Dutch, though, look like they'll be going up to the next stage. He's macroed quite nicely for... Oh, do you see what I see?
I see what you see, and that excites me greatly. The religious freedom unique church card for the Dutch.
Oh, I love that
It's going
card.
to allow him to call Stradiets. So the Stradiet is the mercenary version of the Hussar. Really, really powerful cavalry. Also going to allow him to get those extra 2 banks at the cost of losing 10% speed to his entire military. That does affect everything. That affects his infantry, it affects his cavalry, it affects his artillery. So it's a big trade-off, but for the economy that you gain, it's considered a favorable upgrade to research.
Yep. These Strelibobs doing good work here. There's 20 vills in the TC, and Strelets are actually weirdly kind of tanky when there's 10 vills in a TC, because the overkill is so high that it feels like they're actually taking a lot more damage than they have any right to. So belling up a lot of vills here. This is really good. But, you know, that's Minimoult's decision, right? He felt like he could do that because he's got Colonial Militia, and he chose to age up to the next stage. So looks like Baus doing what what makes sense. And in the back of this, getting the...
picking up of a villager as well.
Even better.
He did a sneaky little snipe shot with the remaining 6 Strelets. And one thing that I didn't notice is that Minimoult took a trade post. He knew what the Baus was doing, the only Baus was doing. Yeah, and so he snuck up this little trade post. I don't think he ever really had an intention of keeping it, only in really delaying the only Baus.
Yeah, but he's going to get another final pass here, so whatever value it certainly paid for itself, I expect, from the stagecoach and indeed the time it's taking him to siege. But I think we can now say the game has kind of begun. Dutch now up to the Fortress Age, which is really where they want to get to. Let's switch on over to him and see what he's electing to send. No shipments available just yet. But this is where ultimately Dutch wants to get. He's got his church, and now he can start saving up for the Stradiets. And perhaps we'll even see the stadholders in Age 3. Russia, on the other hand... looks like he'll also be going to the next stage here. So, after all this time, the dust has settled. 10 minutes in, we see Russia in a position where they did get, I think, 1 villager of the Dutch and definitely a fair bit of idle time, but ultimately didn't really do too much lasting damage. I think he made good use of the Russian early game, and behind all of that, I suppose, units managed to get up this trade route. So we find ourselves in a position where Dutch is up to the Fortress Age much sooner than Russia, who is now going up now, but Russia does have all of these trading posts. And now a second blockhouse coming down. It's that time, is it, to start spamming units from. So, I think this is where the game truly begins.
Yeah, well, Russia's in a great position. Obviously, with the steel traps upgrade, his economy is going to be going off the chains. He's got a huge amount of villagers that are going to be focusing on that food collection. And he's just going to be in a position to try and trade out Strelets as effectively as he can with the enemy units. But in the meantime, we've got these Reuters beginning to run around the map and applying pressure. This is something that I love to do as the Dutch. Building up a Reuter mass is definitely one of my hobbies, alongside golf and cooking. I love building up a Reuter mass. So looks like Minimoult's going to continue doing the same thing.
It's quite satisfying to do as well. One pop anti-cav, spamming them out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Look at this. 1,000 wood. This is some greedy stuff, man.
Meta. Yeah, that's it. The meta at the moment is in a position where we're just being as greedy as we can, and this is an example of it. 1,000 wood. So, I'm expecting either we're going to see the artillery foundry be dropped down and some falconet spam, or we're going to see a double racks drop down and just see some skirmisher masses begin. So,
yeah, and part of me also feels like it's for those remaining banks as well. He's still got 1 left to build, plus the 2 more from the coffee. Can you imagine if he went for all those banks? That's
true, yeah.
Something else that the wood could be used for. But
yeah,
a couple of hussars now out on the field, starting to siege down these trading posts. Wood
he
has
has
arrived.
shipped coffee or the religious freedom, but he doesn't seem to have used it yet in any way. He's gathered up to 1,000 coin now, so let's see if he does decide to ship those Stradiets in.
Yep.
But yeah, nothing yet has really been gained from that.
Yeah, he can click the button any second now. Cossacks now coming in to defend this raid. Veteran hussars coming in on these Huss as well. I think 5 Cossacks do... No, there are 5. I thought there were 4 there. Yeah, he doesn't want to take that fight with the veteran hussar coming in. He would rather wait, so he does pull back a few that got snared there. It looks like coffee trade is coming in, so it looks like it will be for those extra banks by the looks of it, that would. that fifth bank coming down now, and those. No, he cancelled it. So coffee trade was cancelled. It will not be coming in after all.
It can be an interesting decision for Dutch players to make, because losing that 10% in speed, obviously when it affects all your units, it really means that, you know, when you're fighting off enemy cavalry raids, your Reuters are going to be slower. When you're trying to dodge culverin shots with your falconets, it means your falconets are going to be slower. It affects everything. And so in the position that he's in, he was probably thinking, well, I'm going to be putting down those extra 2 banks with that wood. But now he's realized he's probably under a bit too much pressure for it, and he's going to have to spend that wood in another way.
Does pick up a Vil, or not yet, but I expect so. 0 HP. I love it. That's just a quirk of AoE3.
Really paying off there.
The way damage is calculated, you can have floating point values for damage, and if it's below 1, it's displayed as 0. It's just always been like that, but it's kind of funny how that works. I think in AoE2 you can't have that issue. I'm not sure if that exists. It's just no idea. I don't know why I'm comparing it to that anyway. Doesn't matter. Looks like, though, Russia just being, like, there's a lot of pesky stuff happening. A few Reuters here having to pull these units back to sort of scare them away. And as a result, it's sort of just is not able to sort of mount a pressure just yet. And his, I think, window is closing, maybe, with cavalry combat coming in for, you know, these powerful upgrades for minimoult. He's going to be soon in a position where, especially with Stradiots that he can call from the church, maybe that's so if he's keeping this 1,000 coin in reserve. I think that might be what he has in mind. So to us, it's looking like, why isn't he spending his coin? Why isn't he getting the thing that he sent the church card for? But actually, he doesn't need it right now. It's just back in reserve, right? Maybe Russia will come into his base all cozy in the fact that, oh look, your unit mass is a bit rubbish, and then suddenly a bunch of cav combated Stradiots pop out of nowhere, and you catch him under the TC. Maybe he thinks you're low on cav, so he commits to more Strelets, which he has got a lot of, although there are some muskets in here mixed in. And as a result,
I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, like he's constantly got 1,000 coin in reserve, so it's clearly tactical. Yeah,
the Minutemen combined with the combat Cavs Stradiots are just going to be really, really potent. So let's see, maybe he can bait him into that position. I think that'll be the game-winning fight if he's able to pull that off, because those Stradiots, I think they 2-shot the Strelets, they probably 3-shot the muskets.
God,
so, yeah,
imagine if I'm just imagining, like, if Inca had if Dutch had a Chasqui right now, you sort of walk you bring the drop point to them. You're like, no, I got my Stradiots. I'll call them when I want to call them, rather than waiting for you to go into my TC. Thankfully, though, Inca doesn't have any anything like Stradiots in their church and access to too many fast training things. Or the things they do take, after 30 minutes, you have to wait for the 30-minute mark before it would be worth sort of getting them. But yeah, I guess here just sort of showing his army. Although those Reuters, I think he might get away with it. They're gonna get away. Just showing his army, saying, hey, I haven't got very much stuff. Keeping the cavalry and the Reuters sort of back here and hidden. I think trying to bait Baus into thinking, hey, you can come pressure me. I just try and make him feel overly confident, and then pop the big unit. Although that said, these scans are very far forward, which I don't feel comfortable about. There aren't, however, very many hand cavalry, so it's not too problematic for him. They're not going to get snared, but it still makes me a bit uncomfortable, given his game plan is appears to be a sneaky Azamk style, come in under the TC and get him.
Still got that 1,000 coin in reserve, so he's waiting for it.
I'm loving it. Oh, this is so sneaky. It's so good.
If I'm the only boss in this position, though, I would feel like something is up, just because this skirmisher mass at this point in the game should be much larger than what it currently is.
Yeah.
Whether there's falconets going on, whether someone's going up to the industrial age, I don't know what it is, but I don't like it. And as a result, he's moving back. He's just, giving ground to minimoult. And I think that's the right thing to do.
I think Baus, though, maybe the reason he's not pushing in is he knows in the long run, his Vils, he gets more of them, and they train faster than Dutch, and he has the full TP route. So whilst his opponent does all to have those banks, at some point the mid-game bonus where Dutch is, is kind of a bit more powerful than other civs, will close. So I don't think he minds too much about the game just going on and on. He's got he's got a nice eco bonus himself. where villagers train faster, essentially, compared to other civs relative to... Obviously, it's much slower because it's 3 of them at a time. But yeah, just you know, as long as he doesn't lose these TPs and doesn't get caught under a town center or something, which, you know, maybe he expects the glorious, pardon me, the religious freedom card has come in or something like that.
Yeah,
and as a result, doesn't want to.
You've called it. I think you're right. He definitely knows that the longer the game goes on, the better position he's going to be in, because he's maintaining control of the trade routes, even though he's conceding a portion of the map. Is there a raid going on at the moment down here? What have we got?
We have a barracks being destroyed.
Yeah, sneaky little blockhouse is going to be taking out some settlers as well. So I think Baus was attempting to gain some map control down here, but
here we go. This could be it. He's clearly posturing with his army, and it looks like he intends to just jam them all in there. Got a lot of Cossacks now. I think cavalry combat has come in. Well, he has got that upgrade. So now this seems like the time. The snare from the Cossacks do mean the Strelets can get in range, which is absolutely ideal. And where are those Stradiots, my friend Minimoult? I think this is kind of what you were waiting for, but a bit too far away from the fight. Let's switch on over to him actually. Just a lot of Hussars in queue. So
we want Stradiots.
We do want Stradiots, but it looks like he's got these two Huss in queue, so he's going to spend his coin on that.
He's been able to hold this attack off quite well. The massive Cossacks that I saw coming in, I was like, oh, well, this is the end. But yeah, he's managed to kite it away and whittle that mass down from what looked like about 19 to 20 Cossacks down to just a handful.
Yeah.
So really well microed by minimoult.
Manages to survive just fine, and now he's in a position where all of that XP from the fight has pushed his curve up a bit, and we're going to start ramping into those upgrades. Infantry combat coming in, and these skirmishers are now going to get a really big buff. And with cavalry combat, which I think he's also sent, yeah, that's come in as well. Both those upgrades is going to make Dutch extraordinarily powerful, and I think like the game plan of let him come to me, and I'll call them in my base with the Minutemens from my town militia card is not needed anymore. Yeah, Stradiots coming in. He knows he can take the fight to his opponent. It's gotten to the point in the game where Dutch feels confident enough to do that. So, let's take quick stock of the economy before we get into the fight, which I'm sure is about to ensue. 32 villagers plus. We have five banks for Dutch. And only 39 villagers for Russia. Or I suppose he's not really had any additional town centers, so he's not that much further ahead, though does have the entire trading route. So that's sort of keeping up with the banks, I suppose. Although I think the banks are a bit better.
About an even count, about 54 to 53 villagers at the moment, equivalent.
Yeah, so we'll have that in the back of our minds, but what we really want to see now is this big fight and how it's going to proceed. Dutch in a really strong position, I think. He's just called the Stradiots, which has given him a lot of cavalry power to force a fight with. Baus is trying to stay away, trying behind his barracks here. He's just waiting, I think, for these 2 cannons to arrive and his big Cossack mass at these 2 stables, and that's when he'll want to push the fight. Cannons will come out of this blockhouse, and perhaps they can get a volley off. Just waiting for those Cossacks to spawn now. Will he sell all of that wood? Sell the wood! Sell the wood and buy the Cossacks! This is what you need! They're in the right spot. They're right under your stable and on the wrong side, but I suppose it's fine because the rest of the army was up here, so he didn't really want to be spawning them on top there. But it does mean that Dutch takes down one of the blockhouses for free. Cannons packing. Looks like the fight will begin now. Cannons don't fire on the skirm, so losing 1 volley onto the Reuters there. A lot of range. Strelets are just about in range, though, which is kind of what they want, and the Cossacks have found their way through. 1 big volley onto the skirmishers from that falconet is fairly low hit points, although a lot of the units are sort of struggling to get into range of it. I think most of the Reuters that were targeting skirmishers do manage to finish it off, though, but as a result, losing a lot of firepower. And his Cossack and Reuter mass has sort of dwindled away. I think if I were minimoult in this position, I would not want to stay in this fight any longer, simply by virtue of there is nothing protecting my skirmishers, and if Cossacks pop, which they will, they're half-trained, then that would be very dangerous. So, and minimoult knows that, so he's not going to stay near the stables without any kind of anti-cavalry, and I think that's a perfectly acceptable decision.
It looks like while this fight has been going on, that minimoult sent some cavalry up to the north.
These weren't...
They weren't in the fight. So I don't think that with the cavalry archer mass that was there, if he'd sent those Stradiots in, they would have just been shredded. So I think it was the right decision sending these Stradiots off to raid instead.
Yeah. And let's point out that the 2 Russian cannons are now handled. Dutch does not have a cannon shipment of their own, but at least they don't have to deal with enemy cannons anymore. And his skirmisher mass is alive. There's a few low HP units in there, but he's not. Then the cannons aren't going to threaten him anymore. The thing, this could be big, Drongo. He does not want to get those hussars, Stradiots rather, stuck. That could be a bit awkward.
Yeah, this is the classic villager bait. He gives up a couple of villages, but he's going to lose all of the Stradiots.
But he does manage to sort of get out there. Stradiots do have that 7.25 speed, which is actually really high compared to...
I didn't realize that is incredibly quick, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I wonder, is that just their default speed? I mean...
Maybe it's because with the Stradiot, you've got to send... Or, you send the religious freedom card, so they expect that people are going to be taking coffee trade, which is going to be slowing them down. So they just sort of give them a bit of extra speed. It's because it's going to slow them down when they take coffee trade. So maybe that's why. I don't think I've ever seen Stradiots sent without coffee trade being researched. So that's a first.
I didn't realize they had the speed. That's really helpful, though. No wonder he was raiding with them. Yeah, so the reason the game's slow is just because that's how recorded games are at the moment. There's no way to make it go faster unless I use the speed button here, but then it goes too fast and it's sort of hard to keep up. So whilst I'm talking, I sometimes forget to use the speed option.
Especially with that speed up that you've done now, all the Cossacks are on top of the skirmishers. And they came in with flying speed so much so I don't even think minimoult's been able to spot it. And it just meant that he's lost his entire skirmisher mass, or almost his entire skirmisher mass. He doesn't look like he's in a real winning position. He's got the Reuters on the back line, taking out most of the cavalry. The mass from theonlybaus is still present there. It's an interesting trade. How are you feeling about this? What position do you think the victor is in this?
Oh, I don't know. I was just reading some asshole in the chat making a comment about the speed, so I didn't really watch the game too much. I just want to remind everyone that we're all here as volunteers casting, and you can suck my dick. So yeah. I'm not sure. It looks like the game's pretty even, though. Minimoult's got a really high score, but I'm not really sure it's, summing up too much. Because the ecos, as we checked, were actually relatively even. I think our assessment was of that. I think the main benefit is the upgrades that he has. Strelic Combat's not in. So, yeah, Dutch has a really big advantage in terms of these upgrades. So just the units he's producing are just more valuable and sort of stronger. Fewer Prishniks coming in, though. This could make this...
Oh yeah, that's my biggest fear. Opernix. I've had many nightmares about these bad boys. They've got a bonus against villagers, and it means they're going to make short work of these villagers cutting down the wood if they can be spotted by the only boss, and they are indeed. And that's a -5 villager count immediately.
Yeah. I mean, the villager count's going down, so maybe Russia is ahead on eco now, although the score wouldn't indicate that. Still, though, a huge benefit is these upgrades for the Dutch player. Let's switch over to Russia and see what we have in here. This is Dutch. So no, Strelic Combat just not in it. Everything else has been nearly sent, though.
He's also got Boyars to still send as well, so he's got some pretty good spikes, but despite that, it looks like he's thrown in the towel. The skirmisher mass was just proving too potent, and even though he was able to take out a couple of villages, it just wasn't really enough to convince him to stay in the game. I think that in this position, the only boss probably could have rotated more in towards an artillery build. He'd built up quite a significant mass of cavalry archers, so if he dropped down an artillery foundry and maybe got out 2 or 3 falconets, I think it would have been a really good response to the massive skirmishes that he was seeing on the field. Other than that, I don't know how he would have dealt with it.
Yeah, it's I'm not too sure to say. I'm reading the comments again. It was a good game, though. I really enjoyed the dynamic of that one. I really wanted to see Minimoult's sort of Stradiot thing pay off. ultimately, in the end, Baus didn't get baited into his base. If I had to give some advice to sort of new players who may be watching or who are looking to get better, one thing you can, if you're not sure what to do, often going under the TC can be very dangerous. And this was a really good illustration of that, because in Age 3, obviously, everything trains in batches, and you have those Minutemens, and you have those shipments, and if the player times them all at once, the defensive power of things in the game is obviously quite a lot. But Russia not falling for that, but ultimately Dutch does get there in the end with the sort of superior upgrades. So we'll be heading on out into game number 2 in just a moment. Stay tuned, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, spawning on the left-hand side of the map. Where's the play button? Ah, on my keyboard. There it is. We do indeed have minimoult. This time playing as the Ottomans. From the very start of the game, going to crack shot that lion there, and his Punjab Grove rickshaw going to head up onto the river, where there are indeed some yaks to be found, or is it water buffalo grazing near the river. And we'll start to bring them back. Good use of the rickshaw in the early game. It's interesting, actually, that this map is the number of cows that spawn is completely identical in both 1v1, 2v2, and all other game sizes. So there's actually only, I think, 6 cows in total, and that doesn't change. So there is that, and you do have that rickshaw to sort of go and grab them there. Ottoman, though, going to be starting with a trading post in the south. Picking himself up 20 coin before he gets there. Interesting, spending a fair amount of time gathering these like low bob treasures before building it, which could mean he missed out on a passive XP. Such is the way of things. His opponent, minimoult, playing as the Swedish. Oh, very interesting. Here in the right-hand side of the map in the color red there. Nicely done. These torps are kind of packed tightly, I think, and both of them gathering from these animals which are in range. Worth pointing out that this ring is only applying to... it doesn't apply to animals. Animals have... you can gather from a range of 9, which is identical to the hunt's... to the torp's ranged attack. So if your torp can target the animal, when you hover over it and you see the sword come up, like here, you know you can shoot it and you'll be able to gather from that animal. The range is identical there, so that's a handy tip. Overlay is still on. Ah, pardon me. You didn't miss much, guys. I could even restart, but literally all we've got here is Otto... and minimoult getting some yaks. Otto builds a trading post. AoE3 podcast. Use your imagination for Age 1. Yeah. Alright. I think... let's take a look at Sweden's deck. Oh, he's not got one. But I'm sure you'll tell us all about it.
Yeah, let's... I'm curious to see what his deck's going to look like. Obviously, being up against the Ottomans... the Ottomans are one of the more aggressive civilizations in the game, so theonlybaus really showing the type of game that he likes to play, choosing the Russians and then the Ottomans. So with minimoult here, he's opting to go for the 3 settlers instead of the blueberries. He's got blueberries in his deck, which is more of an economic card, but taking the 3 settlers because obviously being against a rushing civ like the Ottomans, he's going to want to make sure that he's got as much economy behind him in the early game as possible. He doesn't really need to invest in the late game by taking blueberries. So he's got a very well balanced deck. he can do pretty much any strategy with this deck. He can boom heavily. He can play the second age, the third age, the fourth age. So I'm curious to see exactly how he's going to play. My suspicion, though, is that we're probably going to see him go up with the Governor so that he gets that early outpost out so he can be extra defensive. And then shipping leather cannons, just because the Swedes do get leather cannons in the second age. They're one of the few civilizations that get early access to artillery. It's not as strong as the Falconet, but it definitely is annoying and difficult for civilizations to deal with in the second age.
Yeah, normally I'd speed the game up here, I think, because there's not too much going on, and obviously the playback is extraordinarily slow because of the recorded game at the moment. But I was going to ask what you thought. Let's talk about the Swedish age-up options there. I think they've obviously got... they don't have the Quartermaster, which is that typical... I think generally if you have the Quartermaster, you just pick it. There's not much thought that needs to go into that. But their options are 500 food, a tower and 200 coin, which I think you said he might go up with, which is what he's doing here, the Governor. And there's also that the Naturalist, 2 villages.
Naturalist, yeah.
2 villages and 2 cows. What do you think of all of those options that Sweden has, and when you should use them, and are they all roughly equal? Like, what are your thoughts in general? And someone said there should be an Age of Empires 3 podcast, and I'm officially proposing to you with this question where we talk about the minutiae of maybe quite mundane things like the Sweden's age-up options and how they interact in the game and what their place is and stuff like that. Hey, would you be interested in some kind of podcast? But maybe we can give some flavor for what that might be. What do you think of the upgrades?
Yeah, well, I can just firstly say that it's an idea that I've explored and I'm considering. I've already approached a number of players yet. I've still got a couple that I'd like to talk to, but yeah, an Age of Empires podcast is definitely something that I think the community needs. And Interjection, I reckon that you'd be an amazing host. So yeah, I'm putting the burden on you. Let's do it. Let's get it done.
Yeah, so I'd speed this up, but I want you to tell us about the age up options. Let's give some give a pre-taste.
So with Sweden, as you mentioned, they don't have the Quartermaster. For most civilizations, the Quartermaster is pretty much what you're going to be taking in 95% of your games. But for Sweden, they're a bit more flexible. They've got the Governor, which is something that you can take if you fear that you're going to be rushed. Or if you're playing against a more economic civilization like the Portuguese or the Dutch, then you can look at taking the Naturalist, which provides you 2 settlers and 2 semi-fattened cows. And the third option that you've got is the Philosopher Prince. I don't advocate for the Philosopher Prince at all. It's 500 food, and you're not getting those 2 settlers from the Naturalist. And the Naturalist is also providing you almost the equivalent, even though it doesn't gather as quickly, and it's not exactly 500 food. But the bonus that you gain from the Naturalist is very significant compared to that. And then I think the final politician that they've got is the Logistician. And the Logistician is an age-up politician that I'd only ever really use in a team game. And it would be in a team game where I was going to be doing a cavalry-focused build, just because they do have access to the arsenal. And it will provide them an arsenal wagon and a military production wagon. The main problem with the Logistician is that because it costs 900 resources instead of 800 resources, it means that you're going to be looking at idle TC time. And so it's really not valuable in 1v1, because it means that you're going to be aging up significantly slower than the Governor or than the Naturalist.
Yeah, those those Logisticians don't really lend themselves all that well to 1v1 gameplay, but I think they're really fun. Like, there's a lot of uses in free-for-all for them. They let you do really cool things. I think in like high-end competitive team games, you might not be able to use them all the time. Some of them are quite good, but yeah, I think ultimately they do what they're supposed to do, which is be fun, and I don't think they're too disruptive to the game. The one I like the most is the Spanish one.
I'm glad you mentioned it.
I'll say no
my
more.
favorite as well.
Yeah, we can talk. Well, let's talk about that another time. We can speed the game up now because we're done talking about politics. Yeah, maybe that's the first one. I also like the Naturalist for Sweden because the cows can be gathered by the torps at the same time as the villagers, so it's actually slightly more efficient for them. But yeah, we were mostly talking about stuff that wasn't in the game. But let's catch up with where we are. So Ottoman has gone with a forward barracks, as you can see. Their first card, by the looks of it, was 700 wood, with which they have built a mosque. All of these trading posts, as you can see here, he's getting the upgrade in as well. So he's got Stagecoach. Very economic-focused build coming out from Ottoman. I think they have this reputation for double racks, Jans, and then people get upset why that didn't really work. Especially against Sweden, not going to work. You have the leather cannons to sort of contend with. But yeah, very economic-focused build here from the Ottoman player. And his second batch of Jans has only just been finished, and with them now going to come in. 700 coin on the way as well, so maybe we'll see a switch to Abbas guns, or maybe this is some kind of yeah, with them on wood. I think that's kind of what we're going to see, rather than a Fortress Age from the Ottoman player here. Switching on over to Minimoult though. This is he so far looks like he's sent 700 wood for torps, followed by the 2 leather cannons here. So Baus, I think, done a good job forcing those leather cannons to be sent rather than the torp card is a really big deal. And yeah, you can see delaying. He's now cancelling the leather cannons. Doesn't feel like he needs them.
Too soon there, didn't you? It's yeah, pulling out the Ironworks card, which is almost a necessity when you're playing Sweden in the early game. I'd be curious to see how he's going to play this one out with the focus on the economy. My suspicion is that he might be doing some sort of semi-fast fortress. It's really easy to fake out your opponent by putting down that racks, just getting a couple of gens out, applying pressure, and then heading up to the 3rd age, and then using that 3rd age to leverage your power by shipping falconets, by getting the upgraded veteran janissaries, and shipping janissary combat as well.
Yeah, so didn't manage to force the leather cannons. If he did, I feel like that would be a victory for Ottoman, and he'd be quite pleased with himself. But Torp card does come in. Engelsberg Torp here. It does change the name of the Torp once Engelsberg Ironworks is sent. So it does telegraph that they have sent that card, and you know what's up. And that has sort of come out here. But yeah, Artillery Foundry has been placed. And now it looks like Baus will be training lots of Abbas guns. He's got 1 in queue there. And he's going to be able to start training quite a lot of them very quickly. Meanwhile, in the back here, I thought this was just his Explorer. We have... Oh, no, his Explorer's down there. We have a couple of... They managed to take down the mosque. I guess he's not too worried. He doesn't want to bring those Jans back home. He wants to keep them out on the front. Bringing them back would just be... would cost a lot of time, I suppose. And this is a good moment to push in, because he's got those Abbas guns about to pop.
Yeah, this is a difficult position for the Swedish player to deal with, because Janissaries at this point in the game are so much stronger than the Karolians. Here we can see them taking out, even though they're outnumbered, it wouldn't even really matter if it was in fair numbers, just because of how strong the Janissaries are. The light leather cannons popping out, just one-shotting the first Janissary. They've got quite a high rate of fire. And taking a second shot off at the Janissaries. The mass continues to build
Abbas guns, can they get the volley? They do. This is an even trade. This is Abbas guns very, very powerful against the leather cannons if they can get some shots, but if they fire at each other at the same time, it's relatively even. Looks like though he is trying to retreat away. They're both still alive, just quite low HP there. Doesn't look like Baus wants to pursue any further, and rightfully so. There's one final volley from those, because of course the Karolines from these 2 barracks, and indeed the Minutemen as well. So not going to go under that TC, does not want to take that risk there. Looks like though Sweden is now looking to get into a position where they can sort of push out. How many torps have we got here? He's got 12 torps with the Engelsberg card sent, and these Karolians still in his base. Although, interestingly, they wouldn't have been able to do any damage had the buildings been built closer to the town centre, I suppose. But yeah, to recap, we have 13 torps. And these mines are still looking pretty healthy. I like 5 up here, really far away and out of the way. Going to be quite hard to siege down. Ottoman now coming back in, but there are 8 crossbows on the way. Big volley. Can he take down those leather cannons? Trying to catch them out would be really handy.
Yeah, I'm surprised he kept them alive in the first round.
Minutemen.
I really thought they were going to be going down. Looks like the Minutemen are going to be able to clean up the Abbas guns and really pushed back this fight here. The Karolians, we haven't seen a charge out of them, but the crossbows get shipped to the forward outpost. So now the tempo is definitely in the favor of Minimoult. He's built up an enormous mass here, combined with the shipment of 8 crossbows as well as the 6 Minutemen. He's still been able to keep these 2 leather cannons alive. Are we able to check what the health on the leather cannons are at the moment? Because
30 and 50. He's done a good job of keeping them up. It's so, yeah.
Holy moly.
Thankfully, the leather cannons do not do very good damage against buildings. They don't have a ×3 like a falconet does, but still, he's got a lot of units there. He's going to be able to siege that down. The main threat of them, I suppose, is against these units. He's just been so diligent, sort of keeping them alive, and now no Abyss guns either, which can easily take down, which can easily just, one stray shot will do tons of damage. But he's going to get back here.
Moving them back as well so cautiously. It's incredibly impressive the attention that he's paying to them, because they represent such a huge threat. Just by keeping them alive, they turn the table. And here we see them again taking off these sneaky shots at the Abyss guns, just outranging them just ever so slightly.
It's like having to deal with 2 falconets when you don't. Well, it's not. It's nowhere near like dealing with that. But it feels a bit like how when you're Dutch or Germans and you can't ship falconets and they can. It feels like having to deal with that. Does manage to take down one of them, and that 30 HP in exchange for like 3 Abyss was insane. Does manage to get the other one down with the Janissaries, and now he's managed to sort of finish them all out. So that's really what he was sort of aiming for, to get rid of them. But I think they've done what they needed to do, those leather cannons. They've managed to allow the Caroleans to deal lots of damage to that barracks, and it will indeed be going down. I did ship 6 Janissaries, which are now in his base there. They'll be useful for defending this, but I think ultimately these military buildings are being threatened.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we didn't see him move up to the Fortress Age. I don't think that it was really a wise decision pushing in against the Swedish player when he had access to those leather cannons. They just present so much of a potent issue, and there we do see that theonlybaus is tapping out. So I think that makes it 2-0 to minimoult with the victory of the series.
Yeah, well done on keeping those cannons up. I mean, I think ultimately he leveraged them very, very effectively.
Yeah, they're incredibly powerful, and he did the right thing in keeping them alive. I was so surprised to see them alive after that first fight. The fact that they survived the second fight and the third fight. If this game was Red Alert, they would have been maximum veterancy upgraded. That was impressive.
Yeah. Quite a short game, but still sort of quite a dynamic one. And interesting to see Otto take that sort of TP down the bottom there. Well, actually, it's not that uncommon, I suppose. There's only 3 TPs on Punjab, though. I suppose I associate Otto more with Central Plain and those other maps with lots of TPs. But still, that's it. Game number 2, and both go to Baus there.